Hello, everyone. I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. 3 seems to be the lucky number for C.B. McGrath. He became the head coach of the UNCW men's basketball team on his 3rd try. He won 3 national championships as an assistant to Coach Roy Williams before leaving UNC for UNC Wilmington. He and his wife, Chris, have 3 children. You're going to learn a lot about C.B. McGrath in this interview, including why he goes by C.B. instead of by his first name, Colin.
My mom said, I had a sister that's 16 months older than I am, 18 months older, and my mom said that she couldn't say Colin, but she could say C.B., and so that's when she switched it, but not sure. That's the only story I've gotten. My parents got divorced when I was basically born. I think my dad liked the name Colin, and so I think my mom switched it to CB is my guess. That's my story. My mom's story is a little different, so who knows?
It's kind of a cool. It's a Colin or CB. CB sounds cooler though.
Oh yeah, you know, there's some people. I had a teacher, and he was like Colin McGrath, and he loved my name, and I was like, here, but I go by CB, and he's like, why would you do that to yourself? Colin McGrath's one of the greatest names I've ever heard, and I was like, I just did, you know. See, I like CB, you know. Now a lot of times when I meet people, they think I say Stevie because you don't meet CBs, right. And then they're like, well, how do you spell that? I'm like, well, it's just my initials, CB.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Now you're from the Topeka, Kansas area, right?
Yeah. So I was born in Indianapolis. My mom moved back with me and my sister when I was young, and lived in Topeka till I went to college. Lawrence, 20 miles away, so I didn't move far. And I was in Lawrence for 8 years as a student and then working for Coach Williams. So I spent the first 27 years of my life in Kansas, I think it was. And I guess when you grow up someplace, you never really think you're going to leave.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Didn't really think about it. And then all of a sudden, Coach Williams gets the North Carolina job and asked me to go with him. So I packed up and moved to North Carolina, and haven't wanted to leave since.
Yeah, I can understand that. Being in North Carolina for almost 30 years myself, it's a pretty good place to be.
Unbelievable. You know, and Coach Williams talked about it all the time. And when you're a Kansan, you're pretty proud of being a Kansan, and you play Kansas basketball, you think it's pretty good. And he starts coming in talking about North Carolina this, North Carolina that. North Carolina's the greatest place to live. You got the mountains here, you got the beach 2 hours away, and so I told myself that I was not going to ever live in North Carolina. I made this pact with myself. After playing for Coach Williams, I was like, you know what, he talks about North Carolina so much, I am never going to move there. And then obviously I get here. It took me a little while, you know, once you leave your home for all those years to like it, but 4 or 5 months in, I was like, this is a pretty nice place.
Yeah.
But I mean, the winter, I didn't wear a coat. Like I was like, this is summertime. Yeah. You know, in December it's 40 degrees and sunny.
Playing golf in January and not having to worry about it. It's a pretty good place to be.
It was unbelievable. And the North Carolinians think it's cold. You know, they're shivering around like, where's your coat? And I was like, you don't understand. This feels like summer.
Yeah, guys, really, wait till you have to shovel snow. It's a lead story around here. And in Kansas and other places, it's a way of life.
Yeah, and now I'm soft and I get cold. And I'm like, man, when can we get to fall or spring, you know? And it's crazy because the winters used to be nothing here to me.
Yeah. You were a pretty good athlete at West. I mean, 13 letters, golf, cross country, and basketball.
Yeah.
Growing up, what did you want to do? Did you have a thought that athletics might be a possibility?
I don't know. I just liked sports. So whatever sport was going on at the time, I did. Instead of baseball, I played golf. You know, I played 1 year of baseball. I might have been in first grade. I was an outfielder. Nobody ever hit it out there. And then it was kid pitch, so you never got to swing the bat because they couldn't throw strikes. And I was like, you know, I like basketball better. And I was playing golf anyway. And I was like, I'll just go play golf because I play with myself. I don't need to have somebody there. You don't need to get together. You don't have to practice with anybody. So I always loved sports. I always liked basketball the most. Probably looking at me, you should probably think I should be a cross-country runner or a golfer.
Well, you were a cross-country runner.
I was.
Pretty good one, too.
I was. I got to be. I wanted to play football, and I played football in middle school, and then my mom put the kibosh on that in high school.
Really?
Thought I'd get hurt. I was little.
Yeah.
So she said, you should probably run cross-country, because she said, you need to do something to stay in shape for basketball. I said, okay, I'll run cross-country, and I ended up liking it. I like running. And, in Topeka, the high school athletics come and go. They're not great, and you got a few athletes here and there. Somebody showed me an article, maybe my mom or somebody sent it to me, that we had a kid that's a 2019 kid from Topeka playing basketball, and he could be the first kid that plays at a BCS school since I did. And I graduated in 1994.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
You would think that that's a pretty rich area, though, for athletics.
And it used to be. And whether they've moved to Lawrence or Kansas City, I don't know, or other small towns, but Topeka just hasn't produced any BCS basketball player since myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It is.
You're talking more than 20 years.
Yeah, 25 years.
So when you walk on, like you did, I mean, I know you wanted to go to Kansas, you wanted to stay there. Did you really have to trust Coach Williams at that point in time? Because he recruited you, and you were a walk-on for him. But what is that like? Because, you hope to get a scholarship. Sure. So do you have to put a level of trust in the person that recruits you? What was that situation like?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you've ever met Coach Williams, he's a very sincere person, and you sort of trust him just from your first conversation. But he basically called me and said, we have one scholarship available. We're saving it for this 7'2" kid, and he needs to still qualify academically, and so that's why I'm not offering you a scholarship. But where would you go to school if you could go anywhere? I was like, I go to Kansas. I want to go to Kansas. He's like, well, would you consider walking on? And so I went and talked to my parents and said, hey, would you consider paying for my college, because Coach Williams wants me to walk on. He said, I'll be a member of the team. Whether he was paying for my school or my parents paying for school, he made me believe that I was going to be a member of the team. No reason to try out. He wasn't going to cut me, those kind of things. I was like, yeah, I mean, there's a great chance. I mean, I get to practice right away and try and impress him and those kind of things. And so we said yes, and that was in May probably, let's say. And then June was summer school, and back then, incoming freshmen couldn't go to summer school. But I drove over to Lawrence every day because they were lifting and they were playing. And so I'd lift weights with them and watch them play pickup, because I was a walk-on and a freshman, and they were... former players came back, and the former players were never leaving the court. Yeah. They were like, I lost, but
your grandfather did.
You sit over there, whoever you are, And so, Coach, I guess, was impressed because the kid ended up not qualifying academically, and was just impressed by my work ethic. So he called like in July and said, hey, I'd like you and your parents to come meet us again. We just got new offices or whatever, and want to show you around. And that's when he said, hey, I've been impressed. We want to pay for your school right now. But he did say it's a year-by-year deal.
Sure.
You're getting your scholarship for your freshman year because we have one. But if I need it back, I'm letting you know right now that it might not have it. You might not have it your sophomore year. But yeah, I mean, he's never going to do that. That's just not him. And so I got it all 4 years, and he paid for my 5th year of school actually, because I was still around there and started working my master's, and then hired me.
Yeah. But I mean, you really, at that point in time, I know you're trying to impress him, but you're not going to the place every day saying, God, if I do this, I impress Roy Williams. That was just what you wanted to do at this point, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Summertime, all my friends had graduated, and they're sleeping till 1 in the afternoon anyway, and I was sort of an early riser, so I just would drive to Lawrence and work out. And then by the time I got home, my buddies were awake, and we could still hang out. It wasn't like I was missing out on any fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's just, I think every kid thinks they're better than they are, and I really thought I could go in there and play a lot of minutes and be really important. And I was important here and there, and a good role player made guys better and just knew my role. But yeah, I thought I could really go in there and start as a freshman.
What did you have any thoughts on what you might want to do for a living? I mean, I know you're playing sports, and at that point you're 18 years old. You're really not thinking. But I mean, any likes that you were thinking? Well, maybe one day I might want to do X or Y or Z.
As a kid growing up, I always wanted to be on the Olympic team for basketball, I wanted to be a Jayhawk basketball player and then play in the Olympics. Those are sort of my things. But when I got to college, they said, "What do you want to be?" I said, I don't really know. I said, math and science are easy for me. I'd rather take any math or science course than write a paper, or read a bunch of things about history and take a test. And so they said, well, you can be a doctor or an engineer. And I said, well, I'll try both. And I took an introduction to engineering course, and it wasn't for me, and just started working on my degree towards human biology. And by time, at the end of my junior year, is when I realized I want to do something in sports. Because I was getting close. I had 1 year left of sports, basically competitive sports, because I wasn't going to play after college.
Sure.
And I really liked sports, and I wanted to be around sports. And, you know, whether it ended up being in sports info or, you know, administration side, I didn't know. I just told Coach Williams, hey, whenever I graduate, Coach, I'm gonna get my degree in human biology. I'm not gonna change my major now and more school. But I'd like to get a job in the sports industry. He's like, yeah, I'll help you. You know, you've done a great job for me. I'll help you with whatever you decide to do. You know, whether it's, I got an internship with Nike and did the WNBA for a summer, and that was sort of cool. You know, just marketing stuff. So I could have done sports marketing maybe. You know, I didn't know, and so it's obviously worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, and the amazing things go, you know, here you are, you're working on your master's. All of a sudden, Matt Doherty leaves, and you've got an opening. And then he goes to Carolina, and then next thing you know, Roy goes to Carolina, you go to Carolina. Isn't it amazing how that world just kind of comes around and goes around to you?
Yeah, it is. There's jobs open every year, and the ones that get filled, there's no rhyme or reason. It's timing more than anything. I mean, I can't even imagine how many calls and emails Coach got when Matt Doherty left to go be the head coach of Notre Dame. Not only to try and go on Matt's staff, but to join Coach Williams' staff. And luckily, I had a good 4-year job interview as a player with Coach Williams, and he saw it in me. He had a secretary call me and say, hey, Coach, let's say it's a Monday. He said, Coach wants me on Thursday. And I figured it was about a job. I didn't know if it was going to be with Matt or with Coach. Yeah. You know, it could have been either. I could have gone in there and say, you know what, I talked to Matt, and he wants to hire you as his ops guy. I'd be like, great, I'm going to Notre Dame. But what Coach said was, hey, you know, I got this position open. I'd really like to hire you. And I said, okay. He's like, well, you know, once you talk about it with your family, I was like, I think they'll be okay. It's a job, you know. And he's like, well, you know, I mean,
let me think about it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's just how Coach is. He thinks you need to think about things, even if, you know, you got to. I mean, why wouldn't any human being not take a job at Kansas with Coach Williams?
Yeah, growing up in Topeka and wanting to play ball in Lawrence anyway. That's like the top of the list.
No brainer. So I've been very fortunate, and just the way the world works, you never know. Because when Matt actually got hired at Carolina, I was like, man, if I would have gone with him, if Coach didn't hire me a job, I'd be at Carolina as a coach right now. You know, it's sort of strange to think about. And then all of a sudden, 3 years later, I'm there now.
Yeah. I do, and we talked about this before we started today, but as I was doing some research, I saw the senior night speech in the middle of the Coliseum.
Yeah.
Can you take me back? Do you remember that like it was yesterday?
I mean,
because the guys look like because you said at one point in time they were taking side bets on whether you were going to cry or not.
Yeah. Well, my two classmates were not really emotional guys, and I always was, and it was my dream to play at Kansas. Yeah. And so they knew that I was probably going to be a little emotional because it was finally over, and the other guys had aspirations to play pro, and they were going to be pros, and they played pro basketball. So they were more thanking the fans for making a great college experience. I was thanking everybody for just giving me a chance, basically.
That's what you said. Yeah, I want to thank Coach Williams for giving me a chance.
Yeah, he just gave me a chance, and, I mean, you don't get to live out your dreams that often. I mean, I never lost a game in Allen Fieldhouse as a player. I mean, that just, stuff just, I mean, you can't even describe that. I went to games as a little kid and saw them lose sometimes, but it was just the awe factor of walking in there, and then I was warming up there and then playing in games there and occasionally have a good play there. You know, it was just, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that I was, indebted to them or was just appreciative of everything they had given me opportunity to do. And so that's when it all came out. But they also knew I was, you know, a little quirky, and one of the assistants said I can entertain myself in a box for hours. You know, like whatever that means. I don't know.
You said that during your speech.
Yeah, you know, Coach Holliday always says these kind of things like, what does that mean? But I mean, it's fine. But I had great teammates, and we got along terrific.
What did Coach Williams? Because he walked over to you after the speech was over.
Yeah.
Do you remember what he said to you?
I don't. You know, he came up when I got emotional. One of the cameramen got right in my face, and Coach Williams yanked the cord and started pulling that guy back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so I think it was more him just saying, hey, I didn't want to take your moment away from you, but that guy was bothering me, so I pulled him back. I think that's all. Like he was almost apologizing to me for because he stood up and everybody started laughing that he stood up and got that guy out of the way. Like,
yeah, because he looked like he kind of came over and well, the video that I saw anyway, like he was kind of giving you a little pep talk there, kind of.
Yeah.
That's kind of fun. I mean, it really was a really cool video that I saw, and to have that on video must be a special piece for you.
Yeah, and somebody started one of the years I was coaching JV at Carolina. They said, "Hey, we saw your video last night," and I was like, "Oh, was it my missed dunk?" And they're like, "You missed a dunk in a game?" I was like, "Yeah, I missed a dunk, and that's what I thought you were talking about."
Right.
And like, "No, your senior speech." And I was like, "Oh, where'd you see that?" And they're like, "Online, YouTube." Like, that's back when YouTube was starting. So now, I don't know who posted it.
It was a website. It had to do with a website. It was something to do with Topeka Sports or something like that. It was.
Okay.
They wrote a piece about you, and they actually had your senior speech.
They clipped that link on.
Yeah, it really was cool. I mean, and to see that is really kind of neat. So then you get on the staff, and did you start to learn about what coaching was about there at Kansas and what a good recruiter was all about and everything like that? How did you go about kind of learning to be a coach, going from player to coach?
Yeah, I mean, it's such an adjustment. You go from, we showed up at practice as players, whether it be 30 minutes early to get ready for practice and go out and practice, and then we're done. We sit around the locker room and shoot the breeze and then go study. On staff, you get up in the morning and you go to work, and you help the coach with mail-outs. You meet, and coach starts talking about practice plan, what should we work on? We haven't done this. We need to do that to get prepared. Like, you had no idea what they were doing, and as a player, you don't even think about what your coaches are doing, to be honest with you.
Right.
You just know that when you practice, you need to practice well so you don't get yelled at. That's all you need to know. And then so it's amazing how much they did and who did what work, and the whole recruiting piece is just something you just have to learn along the way. And it obviously I learned from the best, and he does a great job of running a college basketball program. Is he a pro coach? Probably not. Is he a junior high coach? Probably not. He's one of the best at running a college basketball program there ever is.
And do you remember getting that first recruiting assignment, and how do you learn that? I mean, one of the questions I have down here is, what makes a good recruiter? You were called a good recruiter.
Yeah.
Is it a gut feeling? Do you have pieces you have to kind of pick out because you know who's graduating or who's not going to be here? Take me through your thought process on being a good recruiter.
Well, it evolves. I mean, when I started really recruiting in North Carolina, we could get some of the most talented kids in the country. And so that's what I was sort of focused on. I was like, okay, we got to get this kid. We got to get this kid. He's really talented. He can do this. And we got some of them, and it didn't mesh well sometimes. And I started realizing that it was more important the character of the kid, and Coach always talked about it, and he was great at figuring that out. Mm-hmm. And I think as assistants, we eventually evolved to figure out, okay, these are the types of kids that are most successful for Coach Williams and his program. And if it was the most talented kid, and he had the right type of character, and he had the right type of upbringing, because you got to find out in every situation who the most important person in this kid's life is. Is it his mom? Is it his dad? Aunt and uncle? AAU coach, high school coach, because they're the ones that are sort of driving it.
Gotcha.
The kids think they're making their decisions, but these people behind the scenes are the ones driving their thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so that's when you start realizing you got to hit all these people a little bit so they know about you, they know about your program, they know about the head coach, who they're going to play for, as opposed to just getting the kid.
Right.
A lot of times if you only have the kid and you don't have mom or dad or whoever's important, you're not getting him. And I learned that because I was like, Coach, we're in great. He calls me back all the time. And all this kind of thing. Like, we don't have to worry about it. And then the kid makes a decision, doesn't come. And in his announcement, he's like, I just want to thank my mentor, such and such. And I'd be like, oh, well, I never
didn't know who that was.
I didn't know him. So we weren't getting him any.
Was there one that you thought you had nailed? And when was your first big surprise like that? Can you remember?
I don't know if I've ever really been surprised in a positive way. It's always negative.
Right.
And they all sort of run together, to be honest with you.
Sure.
Because you recruit so many kids, and so there's not one that sticks out. But usually when it gets going, if I don't have a good feeling going in, we're not getting him on his decision. Usually they leak it to you.
Really?
Yeah. Now I guess they're getting pretty good these days.
Yeah. With social media.
Yeah, I mean they're getting real good at hiding it and just releasing it, and because they want to, I guess, get more followers or hits or whoever it is.
How many gymnasiums, how many high school gyms have you been in watching kids play?
so many that when I get to cities, I haven't heard of the school, and I get there and I think I've been in it before. Like I think I've just been in too many. Because they all start to look alike.
Sure.
And I'm like, have I been here before? And I'm like, no, I've never recruited anybody from this town, so why would I have ever been here?
Yeah.
But a lot. And it's cool to see all the different venues, and the interest level of different states and how they like high school sports and prep schools. And, it's...
Did the miles start to grow on you a little bit? Driving the roads?
I really like to go see the kids play. That's my only way to know if it can be a fit in terms of basketball-wise, because that's important. Obviously, you get to meet them face-to-face and know if that's going to work, if their character and the way they answer the questions fit with the type of kids I want to coach. But I have to see them play. I am not very good at watching video and getting a feel for them. I can get a
face-to-face.
I can get a great feel for them just by watching them in person. And so those type of miles don't necessarily hurt me as much as getting home at 5 a.m. from a road game.
Yeah.
And then going to practice or going to work the next day. Like after seeing a kid, like I'm either really excited or I can eliminate him. Which is good.
Cross them off a list. So you get the job at Kansas. You're with Roy at Kansas, and then all of a sudden, he gets the UNC job. How big a move was that? I mean, he goes obviously because of the ties he had, and a lot of people thought that was going to happen anyway on down the line. Yeah. But how big a move was that for C.B. McGrath?
Yeah, well, a lot of Kansas fans and my friends didn't understand why I was going. Like, well, you love Kansas. I was like, yeah, but my job is in North Carolina. Like, I didn't have a job at Kansas. That's just the way the coaching business is. Very few times will a new head coach keep anybody from the previous staff.
Right.
Because a lot of times they take them with them because they're the ones that have worked with them and they trust. Now, could I have gotten a job with Coach Self at Kansas? I don't know. The first time I ever met with him, because I was still there, I just wanted to let him know a few things that were important to the current roster. So he would get off on the right foot, and I gave him a few ideas, and I said, hey, I'm not interested. Well, I said I'm going to North Carolina with Coach Williams. He said, okay, I didn't know that. Nobody had told, it wasn't publicized or anything like that.
Sure.
But just so he knew. So they all, didn't understand it, and Coach Williams got thrown under the bus, and called a traitor, all those kind of things forever. But I mean, he's going back home. Like,
sure.
It's his alma mater, and it's not like he ever said, I'm leaving Kansas because they are not as good a program as North Carolina. He said, I'm going home. It's what I have to do.
Sure, it's two of the most storied programs in the world.
Yeah, I mean, he never once has ever said anything about Kansas not being or being inferior to North Carolina or Carolina being superior to him. I mean, this is what he had to do. He put his heart and soul into it, and every former player or player that was playing for him knew that too. Like he gave everything he had to Kansas. Like, there was no question.
Did he tell recruits? I mean, was he up front with them that if North Carolina comes up, it's a possibility? Or
he answered that question because Coach Smith was getting ready to retire, and then Coach Guthridge took over. Right, it was perfect timing. Yeah. So once Coach Guthridge got the job, that was the big knock. You shouldn't go to Kansas because Roy Williams won't be there. And so he told Nick Collison and Kirk Heinrich that he would be there for their entire career, and that's why he turned them down the first time, because they were still there, and Dr. Frederick, the AD that hired him, was still the AD at Kansas.
Right.
So he had those three components that were still there, and things were fine, and he just could not leave Kirk Heinrich and Nick Collison, because they did ask him, and Nick did, I do want to come to Kansas, but I'm hearing all this. Coach, I'll be there your whole career. So he turned down the job thinking it would never come up again.
Yeah.
He was just hoping Coach Matt would do a great job and run it for as long as he needed to run it for, and Coach Williams to stay at Kansas and be happy, but didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And so UNC came calling again, and I think once he turned down the job the first time, nobody said that anymore, because why would Carolina think he would come the next time, and why would they think they would open up? It was just one of those deals. It was not really talked about anymore.
Yeah.
It was talked about his
took
first...
the pressure off him anyway.
His first 10 years, that's all you heard.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to take over for Coach Smith. He's going to take over. That's all you heard.
Yeah.
And then after that, there was no talk of it until he took over for him.
Did you, when you came to Carolina, was there a point where you said there was maybe a difference in the Carolina fan versus the Kansas fan, or are they both, because they are such storied programs, are they both unique, or was there a difference? And when's the first time you saw, whoa, this is Chapel Hill, this is a different league?
Yeah, they're similar and they're different. You know, they're both passionate. They want to win. They think their program's the best. You know, they think they deserve the most attention, those kind of things. I think UNC on a national scale is more recognized, is considered bigger to me. Kansas fans, they will come to a game 6 feet of snow if the game is at midnight. And 16,300 are going to be there early in their seats, ready to cheer.
Sure. And
cheer for their team. That's what they do. Now, football's not great there. There's no pro sports, you know, I mean, those kind of things. Well, there is at Kansas City, but Carolina's just a little different. You know, they want to be there for the biggest games. They want to be there for the Final Fours and those kind of things. They're going to be there for sure. And all the other stuff, they let you know they're a big fan. You know, like, oh, I'm your biggest fan. You know, I just couldn't make it tonight. You know.
The Duke games, the NC State games. You better be at.
Oh yeah. Those are great games, and but you know, it's a huge venue. It's bigger than Allen Fieldhouse. It's 5,000 more people. So when you get it full, it's rocking. But the programs to me are very similar because I work for the same person, and he had the exact same model the whole time.
Yeah. So
nothing changed for me other than a phone number and learning a new computer and meeting new people. But what I did on a daily basis was the same thing.
Favorite college player while working at either one of those programs? I know there's a bunch of them, but maybe when you recruited and were really happy to see do well or anything like that?
You know, at Kansas, I probably liked Jeff Boschee. He was, I don't know, my size, from North Dakota. Just like growing up as a Kansan, you would want to see that kid play for Kansas.
Yeah. And
he was the all-time three-point leader in Kansas history until, I'm sure somebody's broken his record now, but when we were there, he was the all-time three-point leader. At Carolina, you know, I enjoyed coaching Marcus Page, maybe one of the greatest people I've ever recruited, and that was fun. And to see him get all the way to the Final Four and come close to a national championship, I mean, that's after 2016. You never know if you're ever going to get back to a Final Four or a national championship or anything. I mean, you just don't know.
Sure.
There's been great teams. I've played on great teams that didn't make it to the Final Four. You know, I've coached great teams that didn't make it to the Final Four. It just doesn't happen. And so, yeah, I just was happy that he got there because it's hard to do, and he had those memories for the rest of his life. But you know, this past year's team, 2017, they were focused, and they were a great group. And I recruited a lot of those kids: Kendi Meeks, Nate Britt, Isaiah Hicks, Joel Berry, Theo Pinson. I mean, so I had a great relationship with them, and just to see them go out as national champions is pretty cool.
Sure. When did the UNC Wilmington first come on your radar? Now, you said you were looking at this job, and it was one that you would have left for a long time. But when did that first start to come on your radar about this program? When Jerry Wainwright was here?
Yeah. So my sister-in-law was the head tennis coach here for I think 12 years. They lived here in Wilmington for 13 years. And when I was at Kansas, my wife and I, she might be my girlfriend at the time, I can't remember. We came out to visit her because she was having a baby. And that was the first time we came to Wilmington, and the beach was great. You know, there's no beaches in Kansas. And sort of liked it, and the university seemed awesome, and they always talked about how great it was. And, you know, then a couple years later, we moved to Chapel Hill, and we're coming down 4 weekends a year to visit them and to go to the beach, to go to Wrightsville and stop by the campus and see Trask and meet Coach Wainwright, meet Brad, you know, because Jimmy, her husband, ended up working for the men's basketball program and then was an assistant for the women's basketball program. So, I mean, they had huge ties there, and they always, I mean, you get to family gatherings, you start talking, and they never said a bad word about raising kids in Wilmington, about the university, about the athletics. I mean, so every time it opened, I wanted to try and get the job. And the other couple of times it didn't work out for whatever reason, and this time it did. Third time's was a charm, I guess.
Yeah. Speaking of some of those guys, Nate Britt, he's carefree, and during practice he's the guy who can keep a smile on guys' faces. That's what he said about you. Joel Berry, he never yells at anyone. He's positive, and sometimes it's just hard to take him seriously, but he makes sense. He's always joking around. Stillman White from Wilmington. I can throw a joke at him, but he'll snap right back at me. He's quick-witted. How can you change from being an assistant now? Because it's a different ball game for you now. Whereas maybe you were joking around with some of these, All-Americans and high-profile kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're the big guy, and maybe some of that joking around doesn't make it as the head coach?
Yeah, it doesn't. And, as assistants, you got to find what you think you really play a big factor in. And I thought it was being positive with the guys because I played college basketball. I know how hard it is, and I know on a daily basis it's a grind.
Yeah.
And you don't hear a lot of positive things. You don't see a lot of smiles. It's because I was at Kansas, North Carolina. You got to win. Now, everywhere in college basketball, you got to win. It didn't. Sports wasn't always like that.
Right.
When I was growing up, it wasn't all about winning every time. But now it's just what it's evolved.
Well, it's a money machine now.
Yeah,
it's a business now.
Yeah, it is.
Opposed to maybe when I grew up and when you grew up, it's a different ballgame.
It was recreation. It was to have fun, to be part of a team. And so I realized when I was playing, it felt good to have somebody that would say something positive, and so that's what I always try to do with the guys because they're under pressure. They're under pressure from us, they're under pressure from their families, they're under pressure from the university. They feel it, and I always just thought a little smile or some sort of way to get them to think freely or positively would help. And I evolved into that because my first year as an assistant, I wanted to bury him too. I can't believe he did do that pass. I can't believe he traveled. Who travels? But then they're kids. I started realizing the older I got that they are still kids. Now, when I was a kid trying to coach the kids, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
I still like to have conversations with my current team right now, and I definitely don't joke around nearly as much, but they have seen me smile, and I try and get them to smile, and I try and get them to understand that, it's going to be a work in progress. You guys are all like freshmen in terms of learning a new system and terminology. Basketball is basketball. You guys know how to play basketball, and you start just playing basketball and worry less about the terminology and less if I want you at the free throw line or 1 foot below the free throw line. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Right now.
But you've got to learn CB McGrath, and I've got to learn you.
Yeah. And so it's been great. They've been very coachable, really a nice group. And I obviously think that my resume helps coming in where I get a little respect from them. Like, okay, this guy has done some things. He has coached some players as opposed if I had not because they've been successful. They've won games. Whether they were the biggest role on the team doing that or the smallest role, they know what it takes to win a college basketball game.
Right.
And so I appreciate them, sort of their unwavering support so far.
Yeah.
It's been good.
Tell me about the phone call that you made to Coach Williams. Obviously you take the job during the Final Four, so you still got work to do. But tell me about the phone call when you let him know that you were going to take the job. Can you share? I don't want to get too in-depth here, but what was that like?
It wasn't even a phone call. I interviewed here before we went to the Final Four. They offered me the job on Thursday, so I was at practice at the Final Four. My phone rang, and it was Jimmy. and I hadn't talked to Jimmy in a couple of days. So Coach had tried to call Jimmy after I interviewed. I had tried to, I thanked him, whatever, never heard back from him. So I was like, oh. A day later, I still hadn't heard back from him, and Coach even asked me, have you heard from Jimmy? I was like, I haven't heard from him today, Coach. He's like, okay, well, that's not good. And I was like, I agree, so it's over. So I didn't think about it anymore and was just going to wait the announcement of who they were going to hire. And my phone was ringing. I was at the media session, so I'm sitting off to the side, and my phone rings with Jimmy. So I walk out, and he's like, well, I'm here with Chancellor Sartorelli and General Counsel. I was like, oh, this is good news then.
Good sign.
And he's like, we'd all like to offer you a job. I said, I'll take it. And so I waited for Coach because he was on the podium or whatever, he and the 5 starters. And he came back and he walked in and I said, hey, Coach, I got the job. And we just hugged and, got a little emotional. But he was happy for me. And he said, well, did they say how much or contract? I was like, I didn't even ask. And he's like, okay, we'll work on those details later. But I said, I want that job. I just took it. Like, I didn't ask any questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was an emotional moment?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for both of us. And I was excited, and then when he got emotional, I got emotional, and then, we walked in, we didn't want anybody to know.
Yeah.
Because then it was, I recruited a lot of those players, and, I felt like I was important to them emotionally and with my positive stuff and making them laugh, and I knew them the best. I knew their families. They knew they could call me, and we're trying to get this prize. Yeah. We hadn't played a Final Four game yet, and I didn't know when to tell them. Well, things started leaking on Twitter. You don't know how that happens.
Oh, yes.
And so I told Coach, I was like, Coach, we might need to tell him tonight. And so Stillman, he probably had the most inside track. Like, we were going into a meeting. He's like, hey, give me that bump. Like, not saying anything, but saying something. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I need to say something. So Coach told him at our meeting, and that was good. That was that Thursday night, I think. And Coach said, nothing's final. He's been offered the job. Nobody say anything, and they didn't, because then we got focused on the task. They were happy for me. They knew I wanted to be head coach, and all those kind of things. And I'm just glad it didn't distract me because I had the Gonzaga scout, and I didn't want that to. I didn't want to keep thinking about Wilmington when I'm trying to get focused on Gonzaga and doing my job for UNC.
And that proved to be a whale of a ball game.
Oh man.
And that for a while it looked like it was going to be a runaway, and then all of a sudden, that got a lot tighter than a lot of Carolina fans wanted it to be.
No doubt. And going into that Final Four, at the beginning of the year we weren't a favorite by any means, but then you get to the Final Four, and South Carolina has been in the Final Four since ever, maybe the 50s. Oregon hadn't been since the 20s. Gonzaga never been. So everybody's thinking, how does Carolina lose this? Yeah. Basically. And so now we're going to the favorite as opposed to, somebody that could win the championship. And a lot of times they say, the refs made it a game that was just ugly, and that was the ugliest game I ever saw. And I was like, well, I'm sorry, I thought it was pretty. I'd rather win ugly and win because after we lost to Villanova the year before, everybody's like, that's the greatest college basketball game I've ever seen in the NCAA tournament. It was such a well-played game, and I kept on thinking, well, thank you, but we lost. Yeah. It was a devastating way to lose.
Can you describe what it's like to win a national championship as a coach?
My emotions, I've luckily been an assistant 3 times. The first one in 2005, it just happened so quick. Like I say that one was for myself. You sort of want to win one for yourself. You don't even think about how this would be cool for the players. I didn't think about that. I guess I was pretty selfish. 2009, I wanted to win for Tyler Hansbrough and those guys because he came back every year to try and win a national championship. Mm-hmm. He could have gone to his freshman year. He came back because he wanted to win a national championship. That's the sole reason. And so I thought it would be just a great way for him to leave. And then ever since then, it's almost been like I just want the players to have the opportunity because it's huge. You remember for the rest of your life. You get to come back in 10 years and celebrate and see your former teammates. They don't bring back the runners-up that often. They don't bring back.
That's a great point.
The Final Four guys that often. It's winning championships. Now if you're a school that has 2 Final Fours and that's it, they're going to celebrate those. Yeah. But when you have multiple national championships, you want these guys to feel that, and for the rest of their lives, that they're a national champion. It's pretty cool. So, granted, this year was different because I knew it was my last game as an assistant. And my family was there, my kids. They went the year before, and that was the most fun I ever had at Final Four because my kids got to understand it. They were alive in 2009, but they didn't get it. Yeah. And now they got it, and so that was really satisfying for me. Like, oh, this is why I work so hard, so they can enjoy sitting in a Final Four and cheering, and having those emotions. And then the way we lost, everybody was devastated. So then the next year, one of my daughters, Kate, we always say, well, where are we going to go on vacation this year? And she always, from that time, she wanted to go to Phoenix. And I could never figure it out, but she had heard that the Final Four is in Phoenix.
Okay.
So she had her mindset that she was going to Phoenix. I said, well, we might go on vacation to Phoenix, but we might not be playing there. Oh, we're going to play there, Daddy. And I was like, well, I'm glad you're confident, but I'm not that confident.
Way to go, Kate.
Yeah. So eventually, we won it, and Chris said they could drink Coke the rest of the night because they were giving out free Cokes, and we don't let them drink soda. We just let them drink Sprite, but no caffeinated stuff. Wow. And so that's why they really wanted to win. We could drink Coke all night.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny, Dad. Now, and then you start digging into UNCW. And, you've talked about this already, but, some of Kevin's recruits start to leave. Mm-hmm. So you're already at the Final Four. So was there a 6th or a 7th gear that you found in yourself to kind of get this program to make up some of that lost time?
Yeah, and I think it was just the adrenaline of being a head coach for the first time in the Wilmington community and just all the positive vibes here. Mm-hmm. Now, maybe if they had been losing and everybody was down, it would have been hard for me to find the other gear. I don't know, because I was exhausted. Every year after the season, I'm exhausted, and usually you get a little break.
Yeah, but you don't have time for that this year.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
But I got in and knew we had a job to do, and I needed to find at least some players where I felt like I could get a full roster to practice. You know, I mean, because we had lost so many kids, you know, because of graduation, and then C.J. Bryce was going to transfer, and the 5 kids they had signed are all released. So I needed to find at least a couple where I knew I actually had a legitimate roster I could coach. And I guess the most difficult thing for me is I had to see these kids play because I'd never seen any of them. You know, I was recruiting 5 guys, and those guys were Carolina recruits.
Sure.
And so I needed to find guys that I could recruit at UNCW and find them quickly. And I stumbled across a couple, and when one of my assistants knew Jay Estime was still available, and I went down there, and I walked in and started seeing him play. I was like, he can play for me. And his dad was there, and it was a contact period. I talked to him. I was like, hey, you know, I don't know where you stand recruiting-wise, but I love him. You know, I think he's what we need. We lost 4 guys that made all of our threes. We need guys that can make shots, and Jay can make shots. He's also a good basketball player. And then I went to an evaluation weekend to look for 2018 kids, and Jeffrey Gary was playing. He just wanted to play again because he's thinking about prepping. And I was watching him play, and I was like, man, he's pretty good. I might recruit him for next year. And then somebody said, well, he is a 2017. I was like, he is? So when I called him, I didn't know. I had no idea his uncle played at UNCW or anything. I just said, hey, I'm the head coach at UNCW. I got your name and number. I saw you play. Heard you 2017. I'd love for you to play for us now. Have you heard anything about UNCW? He's like, actually, my uncle played there. And I was like, well, good. And so he goes, I know a little bit about it. And so we started talking, and eventually he decided to, you know, change his mind because he wasn't going to go to a prep school for a year. And because he's a late bloomer, and he's starting to mature now physically. But his mind's great. He understands the game, makes right passes. He's athletic enough, and he's long, and he can really shoot it. So I stumbled across those guys. And the other ones took a little time, you know, the junior college event, and saw Trey there. And then Gene Tall was going to transfer from Florida Atlantic. And so we started messing with a few guys at transfers and stuff like that to not just bring in all freshmen, you know, because I didn't want to make 4-year commitments to guys that I wasn't sure about, and I didn't see enough guys that I saw that were incoming freshmen that could play for us.
At this point in time, and I don't say this in a derogatory way, but you don't come across to me as the guy who wants to say, well, look, I didn't get the job till late, so give me a year. You want to do well now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you don't want anybody to kind of feel sorry for CB that he got the job a little late and everything else.
No. And I've never been a person that wants anybody to feel sorry for me, you know. And it doesn't matter when you take a job. I want to do the best job I can. And I understand how the game works. I understand college basketball. It's not like I've only been in it for 2 years, or, you know, coming from the NBA and have to learn all these rules. Like, how late I got it, the transition's sort of easier because I've been in it so long, you know, but just a few adjustments that I had to make along the way. But, you know, people are like, man, I'm sorry you lost the recruits, and you know, I'm sorry C.J. Bryce left, and, you know, they're down a little bit. I'm like, if the kid doesn't want to be here and he's on our team, it's going to be cancerous to the team for the most part, you know, because you're trying to still recruit this kid to convince him that he wants to be here, as opposed to coaching the guys that do want to be there. And so I've learned over the years that if the kid wants to transfer or doesn't think it's the right fit, no matter what you say to him, you're never going to convince him it's going to be the right fit. And so that, you know, a lot of those players, the prospects had already asked for their releases. And Jimmy just said, wait until you talk to the coach. And so I talked to him, and they say, you know what, Coach, we've already sort of made up our mind. I said, okay, so it doesn't do me any good to go down there and talk to you. He's like, no. And so I said, that's fine. I appreciate that.
Yeah, at least being up front. Right?
Don't waste my time. I don't want to waste yours. And we can go on our way so I can do the job I got to do, and you can go on trips and see other schools that you need to go see. So I appreciate that of the guys that we lit out of our letters.
I've talked to a couple other guys in previous podcasts, Trot Nixon, Connor Barth, and I want to get your perspective as a coach. The whole thing about when a coach leaves, should players be allowed to go without having to sit out a year? Where do you stand on that? Because you've been around the college game now for a while. And like when Coach Keats goes to NC State, some of those guys have to stay before they fall. Where do you stand? Should the kids be able to go immediately? Are they committing to the coach, or are they committing to the program?
Yeah, I've always felt that they're committing to the program, but I also think probably have to do something with the coaches leaving. If they are under contract, you know, I understand that. Like, you know, they should probably have to stay, but I know you get buyouts and those kind of things. I've always felt if you thought it was a school for you like Kansas, I didn't necessarily care who the coach was. I wanted to go to Kansas.
You wanted to wear the uniform with Kansas on the front.
I wanted to go to Kansas.
Yeah.
Coach Williams could left after my freshman year, I was going to stay. Whoever came in, if they left, I was going to stay. Like, that was me. Mm-hmm. But most of my teammates were not Kansans. They did not grow up Kansas fans. He convinced them to come and play for him at Kansas.
Gotcha.
They didn't feel the same way. They felt that way about Coach Williams. In turn, the fans and the university and everything got them believing in Kansas, but they came to play for Coach Williams. So I can see the way, as long as the NCAA is consistent, like there's so many waivers now, and he gets this waiver, he gets that waiver, he gets this waiver. Just make a blanket. If you're going to let everybody go, let everybody go.
Right.
No waivers, or let them go.
Gotcha.
Just
because you've seen it happen. I mean, you've been around the game for long enough that you've seen it happen both ways.
Yeah.
The Roy Williamses or the CB McGraths who just want to wear Kansas on the front of the uniform.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong. You just hope that the kids have a good experience, whether the new coach comes in and gives them a good experience or they need to leave. I like the kids to be able to make a decision because they have to live with their decisions.
Sure.
We don't have to live with that kid's decision.
Yeah.
He has to live with it. And so I think giving them more freedom is good, but you got to make it blanket for everybody.
Your wife, Chris, was an athlete. Still is, I imagine.
Yes.
My wife understands the hours that I put in. Does Chris understand the hours now that CB is going to be a head coach? How has she been with this whole thing, and is she more of a partner in this whole thing too? I mean, my wife knows I have to work a lot of hours. I imagine it's the same for you as a coach.
Oh yeah, and she's always known it, and that helped that she was an athlete because she had to put a lot of time in playing tennis, and she knows the commitment that it took, and that's the only job I've ever had, so that's the only thing she knows. Sort of like my kids.
I was going to say, what's been their response now to moving to Wilmington?
Yeah, I mean, the move is an adjustment for them, but I'm still coaching basketball, doing the same thing, so they know I coach basketball, and I'm going to be gone certain times and be there when I can and all those kind of things. So it'd be different if I was, working at a post office in just 9 to 5, and all of a sudden I go into college coaching after we've been married for 10 years. That would be a shock.
Sure. Well, yeah.
But since we've always done it, she's been terrific, and and I do think it helps that she's a former athlete. But my kids are understanding it, and I've always told them, hey, whenever I become my own boss, maybe I can see you play a couple more games, because in Chapel Hill, the rec league, my son's games are on Saturdays. Well, either we're on the road Saturdays or playing home Saturdays. I honestly play like one time a year, and now even though I'm my own boss, we're playing on Saturdays here, so I might not be able to see him play more, but at least I feel like, hey, if he has a practice on a Tuesday night, I can end practice short. Mm-hmm. It's on my time, and I can go see him play or something.
Or you could get out and let the assistants run practice.
Yeah, something.
Yeah. How does Special Olympics? How is that important to you? Because you've done a lot with Special Olympics when you were at Carolina. Mm-hmm. It's important to me, and I want to know why it's important to you. How did you get involved with that?
Through Coach Williams, and we always had a Special Olympics clinic, whether it was at Kansas or North Carolina, and just to be able to help those that are less fortunate and see the smiles on their face by getting helped by the guys on the team, or just nice shot, high fives. You just can make an impact, or see smiles or see excitement that you normally don't, and you take for granted a lot of things. I'm more fortunate than a lot of people. Just in life in general. Yeah. Let alone the Special Olympians.
But I know you've been working with Special Olympics in North Carolina for a long time.
Yeah, we have, and we've had a good relationship, and hopefully we'll keep that going down here. And I know there's hopefully different counties that have their groups that, I'd like to start something up. It's just a conversation that we need to have once things settle down.
UNCW hosts the New Hanover County Special Olympics games every year.
I heard that.
So it's I've been blessed to be the MC for the ceremony every year, and it really is, when you're involved, and you know this, when you're involved, those smiles, you can't. There's no words to describe them, and there's no price tag on them.
Nothing.
What they do for your heart.
Absolutely.
And you've done the same.
Yeah, and it feels great, but that's not. I've never once looked at that day as, this is going to be good PR. Not one time. That's not why it's important to me. I mean, you just feel great.
Yeah.
And it's not because you're doing something so unusual. It's just because they make you feel great.
Oh yeah.
And
you try to go to one of those events and not leave smiling.
Yeah.
You can't.
No. Yeah. No. And it's amazing how great they make you feel. You just hope that whatever you did for them makes them feel that good too.
Yeah. Now moved to Chapel Hill in the early 2000s. Yet in 2010, you were given the Kansas Community Service Award.
Yeah.
What was that like? Because that must have been a pretty big deal for you.
Yeah, it's a group for it's called the Topeka 2030 Club or something like that, and they like to give Kansans that have been successful and does stuff in the community an award every year. And for some reason, I don't know why, it was my time. They just after a couple national championships, a lot of guys haven't done that, and
but they also pointed out your work in the community and some of the things with Special Olympics and with some of the other things you've done. So I know most people do those things because it's what they want to do and they have a passion for it. But to be rewarded by Kansas when you left so many years ago, that had to have been special.
Yeah, it was, and it was obviously great to get back there and see a lot of people and realize that what I did when I was there and I'm still doing have other Kansans looking up to me, and being important, and any kind of thing that I can try and help raise money for charities or anything, I like to try and do if they feel it's important. You were
at JDRF at the gala we were at when we first met a couple of months ago, a round of golf with CB McGrath at Eagle Point.
I need to still do it. I guess the greens were under construction all summer, but that was a great event. That was so well run. I've been to a lot of events, and I mean that timing was terrific.
Yeah.
It didn't drag. You did bang 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 and got it done.
We keep that one moving.
That was perfect.
I know I've taken a lot of your time today. When you're on the sidelines at Trask and there are thousands of people looking at you, first game, third game, fifth game, what do you want them to know about how much you value being the head coach at UNCW? Obviously, you're going to be thinking about the game, but there's obviously, you want them to know how much you value this opportunity. And when they're looking at CB McGrath, what do you want them to think?
I guess I want them to think that I'm doing the best job that I can for the program at all times, in terms of how I interact with these kids and the respect that my team should show me, I show them. I think it's really important the way we play, the product we put out there. I want all the fans, alumni, everybody there to be proud of what they're watching, win or lose. Obviously everybody wants to win. I want to win. Don't get me wrong. But I want them to be proud, saying, you know what, that's a good team, and they're good teammates, and the coach cares about them, and he's doing it the right way, and he's working hard, and they're trying to follow his lead. Is sort of what I want them thinking, not just, me standing up there and saying, well, that's a bad call, or, me yelling at the refs. I don't want to be a show over there. I want my team to go out and play, and if I got to tell them what to do here and there, great. I want it to just sort of run like clockwork.
And this is really, you appreciate this opportunity. You've pointed at this for a long time. This is not just another job for CB McGrath.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, people say all the time, well, what's your dream job now? I'm like, I haven't even thought about any other job. You get out in the community, like, well, how long are you going to stay? Just because other coaches haven't stayed very long or whatever reason is. There's no job that I'm thinking about other than UNCW. Like, that's just where I want to be. Like, I can't even fathom, if UNC opened up and they wanted to hire me, I can't even think about that because I'm UNCW. And that's just, I don't know if because I've wanted this job for so long that's how I feel, or that it just is, it's always felt like a fit for me and who I am. And, yeah, I hope they appreciate that, because I'm not looking at this place to be a bus stop. I'd like to build a program here and be here till whenever they want to get rid of me, and that could be sooner rather than later. I don't know. We'll find out. But I want them all to know that I do appreciate it, the opportunity that they gave me, and I'm going to do the best that I can, the best I know how. That's what I've always told you. I should do the best that I know how.
Right.
And that's all anybody can ever do. It might not be the best that he knows how or whoever else, but it's the best I know how.
I appreciate you taking the time, Coach. Good to get to know. I met you at the JDRF gala, but it's good to get to know the man behind the basketball job. Thanks for taking the time today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, John. Thank you.
CB McGrath has a big challenge ahead, keeping up the momentum that the program has built after 3 straight CAA championships and back-to-back trips to the NCAA tournament. He knows what it's like to win, He knows what's needed to win. The Seahawk Nation is sure hoping he succeeds. If you know someone who you think would be a good interview for an upcoming episode of the podcast, drop me an email, jevans@wect.com. And if you like what you heard on this episode, please leave a review or a recommendation. That'll help us bring in even more listeners in the future. I'm John Evans. Thanks for joining us for this episode of One on One.